You meet a man on the trail to California. You travel together for 3 months. You share food when supplies run low. You save each other's lives twice, once from bandits, once from thirst in the desert. You arrive in California as friends. Real friends. Brothers even. 6 months later, he murders you in your sleep and takes your gold. This wasn't rare. This was normal. Welcome to early California, where friendship didn't just fade. It was systematically destroyed by the very conditions that brought people together in the first place. Between 1848 and 1880, California was a graveyard for human connection. Not because people didn't want friendship. They desperately craved it. But because the environment made friendship impossible to sustain and incredibly dangerous when it existed. Partnerships dissolved into murder. Companions became competitors. Friends became thieves. The bonds that seemed unbreakable shattered under the weight of desperation, greed, isolation, and betrayal. This isn't a story about bad people choosing to be disloyal. This is about what happens when you take human beings, social creatures who need connection, and place them in conditions that make friendship a liability. That turn every relationship into a potential threat. That reward betrayal and punish loyalty. Early California didn't just make friendship difficult, it made friendship dangerous. Every friend was a potential murderer. Every companion knew your vulnerabilities. Every partnership was one bad day away from violence. And the men who survived, they learned a brutal lesson: trust no one. Depend on no one. Care about no one. Friendship wasn't just rare in early California. It was a weakness that could get you killed. This is the story of why bonds broke, why companions betrayed each other, why the men who went to California seeking fortune lost something far more valuable: their capacity for genuine human connection. Let me show you exactly why friendship rarely survived, and why, in that environment, you would have betrayed your best friend too. January 1848. Gold is discovered at Sutter's Mill. The news spreads across the globe, and by 1849, over 80,000 people are flooding into California from everywhere: America, China, Mexico, Chile, Europe, Australia. They don't arrive alone. Many come with companions, partners, friends from back home, people they've known for years, people they trust completely. The journey to California is brutal. If you travel overland, you spend 5 to 7 months crossing plains, deserts, and mountains. You face starvation, disease, heat, cold, and constant threat from accident or attack. If you travel by sea, you spend 6 months on a ship going around Cape Horn, the most dangerous maritime route in the world, or you cross Panama, where yellow fever and cholera kill thousands. These journeys forge bonds. When you save someone's life, when you share your last canteen of water, when you bury the dead together, you form connections that feel unbreakable. You arrive in California as brothers. You've proven your loyalty. You trust each other completely. And then California destroys it. Because California in 1849 isn't a place. It's chaos. There's no government, no law, no infrastructure. The population explodes from 15,000 to 250,000 in 4 years, but nothing exists to support them. No courts, no reliable police, no social structures, no community. It's tens of thousands of strangers thrown together in temporary mining camps scattered across mountains and valleys. Everyone is desperate. Everyone is competing for the same scarce resource: gold. And here's the critical factor: gold is scarce, incredibly scarce. Most people don't find any. The few who do find barely enough to survive. The stories of instant wealth. They're exceptions, rare enough to fuel hope but not common enough to be reality. So you and your friend arrive together. You've traveled thousands of miles. You've saved each other's lives. You trust each other completely. And then you start working a claim together. And both of you start to realize there's not enough gold for both of us. This is where friendship starts to die. In the mathematics of scarcity, if you find gold, you have to split it. That means each of you has half as much. Half the chance of survival. Half the chance of going home. Half the chance of making this terrible journey worth it. And every day that math gets louder in your head. Every day the temptation grows. What if I didn't have to split it? But it's not just scarcity. It's isolation. You're separated from everything that reinforced your friendship back home. No mutual friends to hold you accountable. No families who know you both. No community that expects you to honor your commitments. No social consequences for betrayal. You're anonymous here. You could betray your friend, take everything, move to another mining camp 50 miles away, use a different name, and no one would ever know. The social structures that make friendship possible, accountability, consequences, reputation, community, they don't exist in early California. And into this vacuum comes something deadly: opportunity. Your friend is vulnerable, he trusts you, he sleeps near you. He tells you where he hides his gold. He turns his back to you, and every day you're aware that if you wanted to betray him, you could. Easily. This is the world that kills friendship, not through dramatic betrayal, but through slow erosion, through mathematical calculation, through temptation that grows stronger every day you don't find enough gold. Welcome to early California. Say goodbye to your friends. They won't survive long. Let me show you exactly how daily life in early California destroys friendship. You and your friend, let's call him James, work a claim together. You're partners. You agreed to split everything 50-50. You trust each other. But every single day, that trust is tested. You're standing in a freezing river for 12 hours, panning for gold. Your back aches. Your hands are numb. You find a few flakes, maybe enough for a week's supplies if you're lucky. James is working upstream. You can't see what he's finding. And here's the question that starts eating at you. Is he telling you the truth about what he finds? When he comes back and shows you 3 pinches of gold dust, is that really all he found? Or did he pocket some? Did he hide some in his boot, under a rock somewhere? You have no way to know, no way to verify. You just have to trust him, and he's thinking the same thing about you. This suspicion, this constant, gnawing uncertainty, it poisons friendship. Even when both of you are being honest, the doubt is there, growing, festering. And here's what makes it worse: you're living together, in a tent, with no privacy, no personal space, no escape from each other. You hear him snoring, you smell him. You're constantly in each other's way. The small irritations that would be manageable back home, where you could go to your own house, have space, cool off, here they accumulate, build, turn into resentment. James chews too loudly, talks too much, doesn't pull his weight, takes more than his share of the blanket. These small things become massive grievances when there's no escape from them. The proximity that should build friendship actually destroys it, because humans need space. We need privacy. We need time apart to maintain relationships. In early California, you have none of that. Now let's talk about food. You have limited supplies. You pooled your resources. Everything belongs to both of you. But James eats more than you. You notice it. You count the beans. You watch him take slightly bigger portions, and you start to resent it. Or maybe you're the one eating more, and he resents you. Either way, every meal becomes a source of tension. And when supplies run low, the question becomes, whose survival matters more? If there's only enough food for one person to survive until the next supply run, who gets it? In theory, you're friends. You'd sacrifice for each other. But in reality, when you're hungry, when survival is at stake, friendship becomes abstract. Survival becomes concrete. So you start hoarding. You hide a little food, just in case. Just to make sure you survive even if things go bad. And James is doing the same thing. And you both know it. And you both pretend you don't know it. The friendship is corroding, not through dramatic confrontation, but through small, silent betrayals, through the daily grind of scarcity and suspicion. Now add danger to the equation. You're both exhausted. You're working 14-hour days. You're not sleeping well, you're malnourished, your judgment is impaired. And in this state, accidents happen. James drops something that nearly hits you, or you make a mistake that puts him at risk. These accidents that back home would be forgiven, laughed off, here they feel like betrayals, like one of you is trying to hurt the other. The paranoia grows. Was that really an accident? Or was he testing whether he could get away with it? You start sleeping with a weapon, just in case. And James notices. And now he sleeps with a weapon too. You're friends. You still call each other friends, but you're also armed against each other, just in case. This is how friendship dies in early California, not through dramatic betrayal, though that happens too, but through the daily erosion of trust. through constant suspicion, through the mathematics of scarcity, through proximity without privacy, through exhaustion and fear and the slow realization that survival might require choosing yourself over your friend. And every day you watch other partnerships dissolve. You hear stories of partners who killed each other, of friends who betrayed each other, of companions who stole from each other. And every story reinforces the lesson: friendship is dangerous, trust is weakness. The only person you can depend on is yourself. James is your friend. You still tell yourself that, but you also watch him carefully. Count the gold, hide your valuables, sleep lightly, because deep down, you know, friendship doesn't survive here. It's only a matter of time before this partnership ends. Badly. Now let's talk about how financial desperation completes the destruction of friendship. You and James have been partners for months. You found barely enough gold to survive. You're both exhausted, broke, desperate. And then one day you find something, a real pocket of gold, not a fortune but enough. Enough to pay off your debts, buy passage home, maybe start over. And here's the moment that kills friendship. You have to decide whether to tell James. If you split it, you both have enough to survive, but not enough to thrive. Not enough to make this nightmare worth it. Not enough to go home with dignity. But if you don't split it, if you pocket some, if you claim you found less than you did, then maybe you have enough. Really enough. This calculation happens in your head in seconds. And it changes everything. Maybe you decide to be honest. You tell James, you split it fairly, and you feel good about it. You've proven your loyalty, but James, he's thinking the same thing you were thinking. And he's wondering, did you really tell him about all of it, or did you hold some back? Even honesty breeds suspicion in this environment, because everyone knows the temptation exists. Everyone knows what's at stake. So even if you're both honest, you're both suspicious. The friendship is poisoned anyway. Or maybe you do pocket some, just a little, just enough to have a cushion, just to protect yourself. And James does the same, and you both know it. And you both pretend you don't know it. And now you're not really partners anymore. You're competitors pretending to be friends. Each of you stealing from the other while maintaining the fiction of partnership. This is how friendship becomes a facade. A lie you both maintain because dissolving the partnership openly is dangerous. But the real relationship, the trust, the loyalty, the actual friendship, it's already dead. Now let's talk about what happens when one of you is injured or sick. James breaks his leg in a mining accident. He can't work. He's consuming resources, food, space, attention, but contributing nothing. What do? In theory, you're friends. You take care of him. You work extra hard to support both of you until he recovers. You sacrifice. But in reality, every day James can't work is a day you're supporting dead weight. Every meal he eats is a meal that should be yours. Every ounce of gold you find has to be split with someone who isn't contributing. The resentment builds. You try to suppress it. You tell yourself you'd want him to do the same for you, but it's there, growing, and James knows it. He sees it in your face, hears it in your tone, feels the tension, and he resents you for resenting him. The friendship that should be strengthened by adversity is instead destroyed by it, because you're not wealthy people with resources to spare. You're desperate people barely surviving. And one of you not pulling weight might mean both of you die. So what actually happens? Often the healthy partner abandons the sick one, leaves in the night, takes the gold and disappears. Friendship dies because survival demands it. Or let's say neither of you is injured. You're both working, but you're not finding gold. You're failing, you're getting desperate, and then James hears about a promising claim elsewhere. He's going to check it out. He'll be back in a few days. Do you trust him to come back, to tell you if he finds something, to maintain the partnership? No, you assume he's abandoning you, looking for a better situation, planning to break the partnership if he finds something good. So you start planning to abandon him first, just in case, just to protect yourself. And maybe you're both wrong, maybe you're both loyal, but the suspicion is there, the doubt is there, and it destroys the friendship anyway. Here's the brutal truth. Friendship requires stability. It requires enough resources that helping your friend doesn't threaten your own survival. It requires trust that's built over time and reinforced by consistent behavior. Early California has none of that. Instead, it has scarcity, desperation, and constant temptation to betray. Friendship doesn't survive here because it can't. The economic reality makes loyalty too expensive and betrayal too tempting. You arrived as friends, but poverty turns friends into competitors. Desperation turns companions into threats, and the math of survival makes betrayal rational. James isn't your friend anymore. He's someone who has access to your resources, your gold, your life, and you're the same to him. The friendship is dead. You just haven't acknowledged it yet. Now let's talk about what disease and death do to the fragile bonds that remain. James gets sick. Cholera, maybe, or typhoid. He's in your tent, fevered, delirious, vomiting. You're his friend. You should care for him, bring him water, keep him comfortable, stay with him while he suffers. But caring for James means exposing yourself to disease. It means losing work time. It means using resources on someone who might die anyway. And if he does die, you inherit his share of everything. His gold, his supplies, his claim. Do you see the problem? The math of friendship becomes perverse. Your friend dying is financially beneficial to you, and your unconscious mind knows it. So even if you try to care for him, part of you is calculating. Part of you is thinking about what happens if he doesn't make it. Part of you has already written him off. And James, in his fevered state, can feel it. He can sense that you've already moved on, that you're already thinking about what comes next. The friendship, whatever remained of it, dies in that moment. Not because either of you chose it, but because the conditions make genuine care almost impossible. Maybe James recovers, he survives, but he knows. He knows you were calculating his death, planning for his absence, and that knowledge poisons whatever bond remained. Or maybe he does die. And you bury him quickly, not out of respect, but because you need to get back to work, because you need to establish your claim to his possessions before someone else does. You tell yourself you're sad, you try to feel grief, but mostly you feel relief. One less person to split with, one less complication. You've become someone who's relieved when your friend dies. Early California did that to you. Now let's talk about what happens when you're the one who's injured. You break your arm, you can still work but not well. You're in pain, you're slower, you're less productive, and you watch James, watch his face, watch his reactions, and you realize he's calculating whether you're worth keeping around. You're friends. You've been through everything together, but none of that matters as much as productivity, as gold, as survival. And you realize with horror, if you can't work, he'll leave you. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon. Because friendship isn't strong enough to overcome the brutal economics of survival. So you work through the pain, you pretend you're fine. You hide your weakness, not because you're tough, but because showing vulnerability to your friend is dangerous. This is what early California does to friendship. It turns your closest companion into someone you have to hide from, someone you can't trust with your weakness. And the psychological toll is devastating. You're going through something traumatic, injury, pain, fear, and you have to do it alone, because the person who should support you is actually a threat. Now multiply this by every death you witness, every sick person you see, every injured miner begging for help. You become numb, callous. You step over dying men because helping them means risking yourself. You watch former friends die alone because getting involved is dangerous. And James does the same. You're both becoming people who value gold over human life, who see death as neutral or beneficial, who have lost the capacity to genuinely care about others. Whatever friendship existed between you is gone, replaced by a cold partnership where you both monitor each other for signs of weakness, where you both calculate whether the other is still useful, where you both prepare for the inevitable moment when partnership becomes competition. Disease and death should bring people closer, should create bonds forged in shared suffering. In early California, they do the opposite. They prove that friendship is conditional, temporary, ultimately worthless compared to survival. And once you learn that lesson, you can never fully trust a friend again. Now let's talk about how violence finishes destroying any friendship that survived everything else. You and James have made it this far. Months together. Despite everything, you're still partners, still friends, or at least you tell yourselves that. And then someone robs your camp, they take your gold, your supplies, everything you've worked for, you're devastated, enraged, and you look at James. And the question enters your mind, did he have something to do with this? Maybe he didn't, probably he didn't. But the suspicion is there, because he knew where the gold was hidden. He knew when you'd be away from camp. He knew everything a thief would need to know. And once that suspicion enters your mind, it's poison, even if it's unfounded, even if James is innocent. You start watching him differently, questioning his story, looking for inconsistencies, and he notices and he's offended. And now he's suspicious of you. Why are you accusing him? Are you planning something? The friendship implodes, not because of what happened, but because of suspicion. Because trust, once broken, cannot be repaired in an environment like early California. Now let's talk about what happens when violence is directed at one of you. Someone threatens James, a dispute over a claim boundary. A gambling debt. Doesn't matter what, someone wants to hurt him. What do? Do you defend him, stand with him, risk your own life for your friend? The answer should be yes. That's what friendship means. But in early California, defending James means making an enemy. It means putting yourself at risk. It means possibly dying for someone who, let's be honest, you're not even sure is really your friend anymore. So you hesitate, you calculate, you weigh the risks, and James sees you hesitate, sees you calculate, and he knows you're not really his friend. When it matters, when his life is on the line, you're not there. The friendship dies in that moment, because both of you realize it's conditional, temporary, not worth dying for. Or maybe the violence is between the two of you. You have an argument about gold, about the claim, about supplies, doesn't matter what. Things escalate, tempers flare, and suddenly you're both armed, both angry, both aware that this could turn deadly. In a normal society, there would be ways to de-escalate. Someone would intervene, the law would step in. Social pressure would cool things down. In early California, there's none of that. Just you and James and weapons and rage and no consequences for violence. Maybe one of you backs down, but the friendship is over. Because you've both seen how close you came to killing each other. Because you've both realized that whatever bond existed between you is weaker than anger. Or maybe you don't back down. Maybe one of you attacks. Maybe the partnership ends in violence. In murder, in a shallow grave that no one will investigate. This happens constantly. Partners killing each other, friends murdering friends, companions who survived incredible journeys together dying at each other's hands over a few ounces of gold. And the ones who don't kill each other, they live with the knowledge that they could have, that they thought about it, that under the right circumstances, the wrong circumstances, they might have. How do you maintain friendship with someone you've considered murdering, someone who's considered murdering you? You can't. The friendship is dead. You're just two people who haven't killed each other yet. Violence in early California isn't just physical, it's psychological. It's the knowledge that friendship is weaker than survival instinct, that loyalty is conditional, that anyone can become a threat. And once you internalize that lesson, you can never truly trust a friend again. You're alone now, even when James is right next to you, even when you're still calling yourselves partners. The friendship didn't survive. It couldn't, not here, not in early California. If friendship between equals is nearly impossible in early California, it's even more fraught when power imbalances are involved, particularly for women, children, and immigrants. Let's talk about what friendship means for women in early California. Women are vastly outnumbered, sometimes 50 men to 1 woman. In theory, this should make female friendships precious, rare bonds in a male-dominated world. But in reality, women are often set against each other. Competition for resources, for safety, for male protection, for social status in a world where women have almost none. If you're a woman, other women aren't necessarily allies. They're potential competition. Competition for the few respectable positions available. Competition for marriage prospects who aren't violent or destitute. Competition for survival in a world hostile to women. And if you're a prostitute, as many women are forced to be, friendship with other prostitutes is complicated by competition for clients, for the favor of pimps and madams, for slightly better treatment in a horrific situation. The system pits women against each other. makes solidarity dangerous, turns potential friends into rivals, and friendships between women and men even more complicated. Men claim to be friends, to be protectors, but their friendship always comes with strings, with expectations, with the implicit or explicit threat of withdrawal of protection if you don't comply with their demands. You can't fully trust male friends because the power imbalance is too extreme, because their friendship is conditional on your behavior, because in early California, women are seen as property or opportunities, rarely as equals deserving genuine friendship. Now let's talk about children, the few who exist in early California. Children should be protected by adult friendships, by networks of care, by community solidarity. But in early California, children are alone. Adults are too busy surviving to form the kinds of bonds that create community care for children. If you're an orphan, and many children are because parents die constantly, you have no friends, no protectors, no one who cares whether you survive. You might attach yourself to an adult, call them a friend, a guardian. But the relationship is exploitative. They're using you for labor, for benefit, not friendship. Real friendship requires equal concern, mutual care. Children in early California receive neither. Now let's talk about immigrants, particularly Chinese immigrants. You arrive in California with companions from your village, people you've known your whole life, real friends forged over years, and early California destroys those friendships too. The racism is so extreme that Chinese immigrants can't trust anyone outside their community. They're robbed, beaten, murdered. Their claims are jumped. Their contracts aren't honored, so they rely on each other, on the bonds formed back home, on friendship and kinship. But scarcity and desperation affect Chinese minors just like everyone else. The same pressures that destroy white friendships destroy Chinese friendships. The same temptations to betray. The same mathematical calculations about survival. And add to this, some Chinese immigrants become informants, collaborate with white oppressors, betray their own community for advantage. This creates pervasive suspicion. You can't fully trust even your countrymen, even people from your village, because desperation makes people do terrible things. And Mexican minors face similar dynamics. They're discriminated against, driven from claims. Their friendships are strained by the same pressures of scarcity and violence that affect everyone else, plus the additional burden of systematic racism. Friendship across racial lines, nearly impossible. The power differentials are too extreme. The racism too pervasive. White minors don't see Chinese or Mexican minors as potential friends. They see them as competition, as inferiors, as targets. The few genuine cross-racial friendships that form are constantly tested by social pressure, by discrimination, by the knowledge that the larger society doesn't recognize your friendship's validity. Early California doesn't just destroy friendship. It makes friendship conditional on power, on race, on gender. It creates a hierarchy where some people are considered incapable of genuine friendship, not because they lack humanity, but because society denies their humanity. If you're a woman, a child, or an immigrant in early California, friendship isn't just rare. It's dangerous, conditional, corrupted by power imbalances that make genuine equality impossible. And without equality, there is no real friendship. Just relationships of exploitation wearing friendship's mask. If you want to see friendship in early California at its absolute breaking point, look at the winter of 1850-1851. Thousands of miners are trapped in the Sierra Nevada camps. The snow is 10 feet deep. Supplies are running out. Disease is spreading. Men are dying every day. This should be a moment of solidarity, of friendships becoming stronger, of people banding together to survive. Instead, it's the opposite. Partnerships dissolve into violence at unprecedented rates. Men who have been companions for years murder each other over food, over suspicion, over gold, over nothing at all. The winter brings out the truth. When survival is genuinely at stake, friendship dies. You and James are trapped together. You've run out of food, supply lines are cut, you're both starving, and you realize there's not enough for both of you to survive until spring. This is the moment where friendship ends and survival calculation begins. You look at James differently now, not as a friend, not as a companion, but as someone consuming resources you need. Someone whose death would increase your chances of survival, and he's looking at you the same way. You both know it, you both feel it. The friendship, whatever remained of it, is dead, replaced by mutual suspicion and fear. You sleep in shifts. You hide what food you have. You watch each other constantly. And then one of you makes a move. Maybe it's James, maybe it's you. Someone decides that partnership is over. That survival requires eliminating the other person. This happens in countless camps that winter, partners killing each other, friends murdering friends, companions who traveled thousands of miles together dying at each other's hands, and the ones who don't kill each other. They live with the knowledge that they thought about it, that they came close, that the only thing separating them from the murderers is luck or cowardice, not loyalty. When spring comes and the snows melt, the survivors emerge changed, harder, more isolated, convinced that friendship is a luxury they can't afford. They've seen what happens when conditions get truly desperate. They've learned that friendship doesn't survive real pressure, that when it comes down to it, everyone chooses themselves. This winter doesn't create these dynamics. It just reveals them. It proves what was always true. Friendship in early California is an illusion, a temporary arrangement that dissolves the moment survival is genuinely threatened. And once you've learned that lesson, once you've looked your friend in the eye and calculated whether killing him would improve your survival chances, you can never fully trust a friendship again. You survived the winter. But your capacity for friendship didn't, and neither did anyone else. This is how early California completes its destruction of human connection, not gradually, but in moments of crisis that reveal the truth. Here, friendships don't survive. They can't. Not in this place. Not under these conditions. Now think about your friendships. Your real friendships. You probably have people you trust completely, people you'd help even if it cost you, people who'd help you, people you care about deeply. These friendships feel solid, permanent, unbreakable, and they probably are, because you live in a world that makes friendship possible. You have enough resources that helping a friend doesn't threaten your survival. You have social structures that reinforce loyalty and punish betrayal. You have privacy, space to maintain healthy boundaries. You have alternatives. If one friendship fails, you have others. Most importantly, you have stability. Your friendships can develop over time, can be tested gradually, can build trust through repeated positive interactions. In early California, none of that existed. Friendships formed quickly, too quickly to build real trust. They existed in conditions of extreme scarcity, where helping a friend might mean your own death. They happened in proximity that bred resentment. They lacked social reinforcement, no community to support loyalty or punish betrayal. Your friendships survive because your environment supports them. Theirs died because their environment destroyed them. You like to think you'd be different, that you'd maintain loyalty, that your friendships would survive early California, but they wouldn't. You'd be exactly like everyone else, suspicious, calculating, ultimately alone, not because you're a bad person, but because friendship requires certain conditions. And early California had the worst possible conditions. The difference between you and them isn't moral character, it's environment. You're fortunate enough to live in a world where friendship can survive, where loyalty makes sense, where trust is rational. They weren't. And so their friendships died, inevitably, predictably, tragically. So appreciate your friendships, the fact that you can trust people, that you can be vulnerable without being destroyed, that you can help someone without risking your survival. These things aren't guaranteed. They're products of the stable, relatively prosperous society you live in. Take them away, create conditions like early California, and your friendships would die too, just like theirs did. We're not better people. We're just luckier. And we should never forget how fragile friendship really is. Friendship rarely survived in early California, not because people didn't want it. They desperately craved connection, but because the environment made friendship impossible. Scarcity turned partners into competitors. Proximity bred resentment. Isolation bred suspicion. Desperation made betrayal rational. Violence proved that friendship was weaker than survival instinct. Men who arrived as brothers left as enemies if they left at all. Partners killed each other. Companions betrayed each other. The bonds that seemed unbreakable shattered under the weight of gold fever and desperation. This wasn't moral failure. It was environmental reality. Friendship requires certain conditions: stability, sufficiency, privacy, social reinforcement, mutual trust built over time. Early California offered none of these. Instead, it offered the perfect conditions for friendship to die: extreme scarcity, forced proximity, no accountability, constant temptation to betray, and rewards for ruthlessness. In that environment, your friendships would have died too. Not because you're disloyal, but because friendship cannot survive conditions that make loyalty suicidal. We're fortunate to live in a world where friendship is possible, where we can trust people without getting killed, where helping a friend doesn't threaten our survival, where loyalty makes sense. They didn't have that, and so their friendships died, thousands upon thousands of them. Relationships that should have lasted lifetimes ended in betrayal or violence or the slow erosion of trust. Let this be a reminder: friendship is precious and fragile and dependent on conditions we take for granted. Protect those conditions. Cherish your friendships, because they're more vulnerable than you think. If this story moved you, explore our other documentaries about early American states. Understanding where we came from helps us appreciate what we have now.